Hi there, good morning. It's a couple weeks here before Christmas, 2022. What I'm working on is my 2007 Suzuki Vstrom 1000 or DL1000. And what I got going on is the stator is not working. So it's working, but not working very good. I've done multiple tests. I've got a new battery and I've got heated grips. I've got an extra 12-volt plug in addition to some lights that I've added. Driving lights down there. And it just pulls too much juice off the battery as I'm running. So I've ridden it all day. Towards the end of the day my battery will die and I won't be able to start the bike. So that's a problem when you're out on the street. The last trip we took was up to Oktoberfest, and when we got there my battery was dead and I had no way to fix it. So I was stuck and I had to go buy battery charger. So I ended up pulling the battery out, charging it in the hotel room overnight, and then I could ride it all day the next day. So it charges, but it doesn't charge enough. So typically you need, I think it's about 14.5 volts when it's charging correctly to run all your extra components. And I was getting about 13, just over 13, maybe 13.5 at the most. And particularly when I used my heated grips, it just drained the battery and it wasn't able to keep up with the charge. So the shortcut that I've learned on this particular one is how to do it without draining the oil. Basically you just lean the bike over to that side, to the right side, and all the oil goes to that side of the motor. Now to drain the oil on mine, I've got to take that pan off. It's a steel skid plate. I'm going to undo the bolts. It's really kind of a pain, and then you got to drain the oil and it gets messy, and then you have the question of, do I put new oil back in after I've had oil change about 5,000 miles ago. So you could put new oil in, but I'm not quite at the end of my oil's life, so I don't want to do that. So that's what I've done. So I'll show you how I've leaned it over here. So before I lean it over, just to kind of let you know where I'm at in this process. So I did order parts. I have a new stator here. It's Electrosport. I don't know which is the best one to go. All I know is the factory model replacement is 400 bucks, and you can get them either rewired for around 50 bucks, or you can buy either a remanufactured one for 75, 80 bucks, or you can buy a aftermarket replacement, which is what this is, and I paid I think $150 for this one. I've heard positives and negatives about all kinds of different ones, but ultimately you just have to try it and see which one's going to work the best for you. This is the one that I'm going to go with, and if it doesn't work, I can amend my video or comments later and let you know. So in order to get to this, or better yet to this plug, I had to remove this side case that's here, which is currently down here on the floor. In order to remove the side case, I had to remove the rack that's on top. So you had to get all that done to get to this plug to do some testing, which I did. I'm supposed to test the ohms on that. They looked like they tested correctly, but again, it didn't really tell me anything because my battery still was not charging. All right, I got my bike laid over. What I've been able to do is I'm able to pull this cover off, and I don't have to drain the oil. So in doing all this, it took me, what, 5 minutes to set it up this way, versus taking this pan off and then draining all the oil. And then at that point, when you take this off, all the oil is going to come seeping out here anyhow, so it makes a mess. But doing it this way saves you time and it saves you some mess. What I've done is I've secured my front brake, because the last time I did this, the front end was going all over the place as I tried to either lift it or put it down, and I wasn't able to do it real slowly, and actually dropped it. So, but this time I got smart, locked up the front brake, and it was a cinch. There will be some parts that's going to fall off inside, so be careful when you pull this off. and it's pretty heavy and it's under the magnetic tension. So this is what the inside looks like right here and right here. So there's two things that fell off. Sometimes this little sleeve right here will fall out. It did not. So that's just a guide sleeve that when you put it back together, it guides the case in correctly. Not incorrectly, but guides it in correctly. You get it. Okay. So here's the magnets in here. This magnet right here was not glued in, and it was slid over to where there was no space here and a larger space here. So what I did is I took JB Weld and I welded it back on with that, and I reinforced all the way around the edges. You can see there's some extra stuff on there. Cleaned it up. It's pretty easy to clean up and do that. So that's the first thing you want to check. The whole reason we're here is for this thing right here. You can see the darkened one. Right. And this one right here is the one that's burnt and not working correctly. So out with the old, in with the new. Okay, so here's my new stator. Probably should make sure that all the plugs are going to match before we go through all the troubles, just to double check. What I didn't do is I didn't look to see exactly how it came out of there, but I'm assuming it's only going to fit in one way. We're all going to find out together. So putting that in. If that goes there, and now I'm going to have to play with this and I'll get back to you. So that's going to go upside down like this. So don't crank it down all the way because you want to make sure it's all even. If you crank that one down first, it's going to be a little off center. So, and this goes with, you know, putting wheels on your car and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to crank down the first one until you get them all set, and make sure that everything's flat on the back. So ask me how I know this, because I drove a car one day that I've tightened the first bolt down and then tightened the rest of them down, and got a few miles down the road and the bolts all came loose, and I had to buy a new tire, wheel, lug nuts, all that. See how that one came loose? So work them all down. Now it appears to be tight, and I'll cinch them down and it will be in place. So on these little small screws, I don't see any Loctite on there, so we are not going to put any Loctite. Voila. So I've got my new gasket, and I've applied the RVT silicone in that little plug spot, and I'm ready to reassemble. So here we go. Okay, got it all back together. It's all ready to go. And got all the wires reran. I got the voltage regulator plugs plugged back in. So let's get it stood up. So one thing to definitely keep in mind when you stand this up, especially if you're by yourself, make sure you put the kickstand down. So when you get it up, you don't want it to fall over the other side. So, all right, here we go. Got it stood back up, and we're gonna fire it up and see if the thing charges. Here we go. Look at that. Got good voltage, and that's only at 1500 RPM. So 14.6, so we are in the money. All right, bike's all put back together. Took her for a ride yesterday. Did the New Year's Day ride, about 42, 45 degrees all day. Had my heated grips on. I had the GPS going for my phone the whole time. When I started the ride yesterday, I tested my voltage before I started the bike up. It was about 12.98, something like that. And then when I got the ride done, got home after using those electronics all day, tested it when I got off the bike, and it was 13.11. So it's definitely charging, and it's definitely working. So we're all good. Job well done. And I don't see any oil leaks. Everything's good to go. Back on the road. And if you got this far in this video, I appreciate you watching. Have a nice day.